It's 1991. Mom and Dad are fighting again. Kids at school don't like me, but I don't really care about them. Because when I get home, I'll switch on my CPC, put in the latest cover tape, and then I'm finally free. For some Amstrad action, the Amstrad's main attraction. 16 colors stereo, press play then any key, let's go. Amstrad Action, the leader of the 8-bit faction. The CPC attack always kept me coming back. Get Dexter, Arkanoid, Grise or Cybernoid, head over heels and Turrican too. Zapped balls, BAT, totally Eclipse and Dizzy, Roland in time and Chase HQ. US Gold, Cold Masters, Ocean Software, Houston, Burning Robo was okay, what else do I have to say? Amstrad Action, it's a growing 8-bit faction, the CPC attack. Look out world, the Amstrad's coming back.
Hello everyone. Today we've got Rod Lawton here, who many of you will remember as the long-serving editor of Amstrad Action magazine. And Rod, do you want to just say hello and perhaps tell us a bit about yourself?
Yes. Hello everyone. It's quite an honor to be invited to talk about the Amstrad days. It's a while ago now, so I just hope I can remember all the stuff you want to know about. But thanks for the invite anyway.
Yeah, my first question would be what were you doing before Amstrad Action? How did you kind of get into that?
Right. Well, how long have you got? I started out wanting to be a photographer. I found out that it was easier to take photographs if you wrote about photographs. So I discovered more of a talent for journalism. But then getting into journalism wasn't that easy. So I started out in a production role, right, which is how I eventually got the job on Amstrad Action from my production background.
Okay. That's great. And since the magazine, what have you been doing? I know you're involved a lot with photography. That seems to be your main kind of thing now.
Yeah, I am now. So after Amstrad Action, I was briefly books editor at Future Publishing in the UK. And then I went freelance, just doing general tech, computing, journalism, that kind of thing. But then when digital cameras arrived about 2000, that gave me an excuse to go full circle back to what I was actually interested in, which was photography. So since then, I've been a kind of full-time photography journalist.
And then is going back to the magazine, did you did you seek that out, or was it just that you were kind of, I want to work on magazines, and that happened to be something that came up? Did that find you, or did you find it?
So I guess, yeah, I always wanted to be on magazines. At the time, there weren't really any opportunities to be on photographic magazines. It was more, computing was really big back then, especially magazines about computing. So I did a lot of production work on a couple of those titles, and getting the job on Amstrad Action, excuse me, was a kind of logical career progression, you might say. But it was kind of not quite what I expected, and I did enjoy it a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah.
It's interesting times.
Yeah. And I guess that my impression of it was from being, a kid really that was reading it. And so it always seemed like it was very kind of lighthearted and funny. And I had this, impression of this really anarchic sort of workplace, doing pranks and stuff. Was it actually like that, or was that sort of stuff that you kind of?
No, it actually was. I think we were all quite lucky. We were on the tail end of something. We were on the tail end of a publishing era where, excuse me, where the editorial staff had a lot more say over what the magazine should be and how it was run, because the publishers didn't really understand it. So, you hire geeks to do this stuff and just make sure it makes some money. So we had a bit more freedom than I think magazine editors have today. I say a bit more, a lot more. So I think my feeling was, and I think it's throughout the team really, that if we were bored, the readers would be bored. So that was always on our minds, that you can't separate yourself from the reader. You can't think of readers being as like a commodity that you mine. You have to think they're like you. And if something is boring or exciting to you, there's a pretty good chance it's going to be boring or exciting to your readers. So that's how we felt about it, really.
Yeah. And I guess something that sticks in my mind is a lot of like those covers that you had with the funny sort of photos on them. And, there was ones where one of the guys was smashing a TV for Smash TV and, things like that. Did you just do that in the office, or was there like a studio or something? Did you have like a budget for funny covers, or how did that work?
Yeah, those were the days when magazines had the sort of budget where you could hire a photographer in a studio for a day to do the cover. So that's what we did, and often there'd be 2 or 3 of us down at the studio. It's a lot of time to take out of work, really. You probably couldn't do it today, but back then, we always found a way to do the cover because that was the most important part.
Yeah.
So we did kind of brainstorm ideas. Excuse me. Ideas for the cover, and then we just went along to the studio. We told the photographer what we were thinking, and over the course of a few hours, we figured out how to do it. So yeah, we did quite a few covers that we're quite pleased with. Let's say.
Yeah, they were always great. And did you feel like that? I remember there was I read an article fairly recently. It was Adam Peters, one of the guys that you worked with there, and he reckoned that there was a cover where he appeared shirtless as a punk rocker or something. And he said that the magazine actually sold 4,000 fewer copies that month. And that he was banned from appearing on the cover after. So, but I mean,
yeah,
do you think that covers kind of did affect your sales? If you had a nice photo as opposed to just putting like the poster of a game on it or something?
It's very hard. It's very hard to say. It's very difficult to separate out the variables to see what did it. I mean, the easier answer is that if you get a good cover, then you'll get good sales. But in practice, magazine sales are seasonal. The cover lines make a difference. What you've got in the issue makes a difference.
Yeah,
it's a little difficult to unravel the cause and effect. So I think a boring cover certainly won't help, but I think you can go too far trying to analyze it. Really, I think one of our favorite ones. I don't know whether you remember the Will Hay cover. That's one we didn't shoot. Obviously, that was an education special, and our art editor Rolly found this brilliant stock photo of Will Hay, or black and white photo, and that's still one of our favorite covers. So we didn't photograph them all.
Looking character, is that what you mean?
The schoolmaster, yeah.
Okay, I think I do remember that. Yeah.
So I'm saying the name like everyone would know. So Will Hay was a black and white comedy film star of the 1930s. So back in the 80s and 90s,
we did get a lot of British TV in Australia, but it was
all right.
A bit later. It was probably like the Goodies and the Young Ones and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Very, very high rotation in Australia, but yeah, that was probably
okay. No, it's just one of those like classic old-fashioned comedy film that's probably more remembered in Amstrad Action days than it is today. So yeah, I might do that a lot. I might reel off references that make no sense today. So stop me if I do.
No, bring it on. Like I always think whenever we have an event at the museum, I challenge myself to come up with a reference so obscure that nobody in the audience is going to get it, because there are a lot of people that are deeper down every rabbit hole than I am. So no matter what I do, there's always going to be someone that gets it.
I can't believe it. I'm in a museum now. I can't believe it. Have to happen.
It's kind of So I mean, and I guess that's the thing. Like, did you sort of imagine at the time that like I'm doing something for posterity, or that this is going to be?
Not in the slightest, because at the time I think Amstrad Action, like the other 8-bit titles at Future, because this was when the Atari ST and the Amiga were coming in, they got all the attention. So the 8-bit titles were like a relic. They were still profitable. They weren't like frontline computing magazines. And in a sense, not having that attention on them gave the teams a bit more leeway and a bit more freedom, because the publisher's attitude was, well, we don't understand why people are still buying these, but they are, so keep going. So that's what we did, really.
No, I mean, certainly for me, a big thing was you always had the tapes on the covers, and it had got to the point where, at least in Australia, where it was getting hard to buy software for the Amstrad, that they just weren't really stocking it in many shops, and I lived in a fairly small town, so it was only when I went to Sydney, say on the school holidays or something, to go to one of the biggest stores there that you could actually buy games. But the local shops in my town would only sort of just have maybe Sega, Nintendo, and nothing else. So having every month just like a tape with even a small game or something on it, it was like a nice little gift every month, just to put that in.
So they loaded,
yeah, they always worked really well for me, and that's
okay.
I've found that surprisingly, I mean, because now being involved with a computing museum, that I'm sort of trying to resurrect a lot of old computers, and I found that the Amstrad stuff, the CPCs, are really fairly bulletproof. Like the disk drives they have a little rubber band,
right?
But you replace that, but all the electronics are really quite durable. I think nothing seems to really fail on them too much. I know that with the Commodores, we're scared to plug them in because Commodore power supplies are notorious for they do a thing where they kind of go short circuit and just put high voltage straight into the DC of the computer and just blow it up. So, but I mean, I run a CPC off a USB thing, and it just works fine. They're great. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. I guess the other challenge is, I guess you have to use a really rubbish old TV as a monitor, because that must be quite difficult, finding monitors bad enough for these old APM machines.
Well,
or with the right inputs.
Yeah. Look, it has been challenging, but that's been another thing that's been a personal project of mine, is to dig up every TV or monitor that has those kind of inputs, because we've got, the Amstrad as well as the Spectrum. We've got an Auric floating around, and then even a lot of the old Segas and things like that. They all use the same kind of signals. And so to the point where now I can kind of plug pretty much anything into a TV when I need to. So
it was quite interesting as well at the time. You had these three main OP computers, and they were different tribes, different planets even. So for an Amstrad user, the Spectrum computers and their users, they're like the scruffy kids from down the street. We don't speak to them. And C64, that's just alien world, because Future didn't have a Commodore Mag anyway. So they were just weird outsiders we never spoke to or spoke about. So these worlds were very, very brand specific, because I suppose at those times computers had very different, very specific operating systems, and you just didn't get a whole lot of crossover.
Yeah, and I mean that's something that I really find interesting about that period of computers compared to now. Yeah, is like you said, that I sort of compare it to a couple of years ago we were car shopping. My wife said to me, "I don't want a French or Italian car." But it's kind of funny that you can say that. You can say what a French car is. And in the I guess you could say what, if you have a computer from America or one from the UK or one from France or something, that they're going to have these particular things about them. But you couldn't really now say, "Oh, I've got a French computer." What would that mean? If you did have that. I remember once reading a science fiction story about a parallel universe where Italy became the center of computing, and Olivetti and they had these absolutely beautiful computers, that were kind of really, nice to use because they were made by Italian artisans and that sort of thing. But it never happened, that it's sort of the thing is
Apple stole the idea,
become this kind of just this, black rectangle, and that they're so interchangeable.
Well, it's interesting. I think
have we lost something there,
Yeah, I think in computing, as in sadly publishing, everything has become homogenized. So in the early days, nobody knew what's happening, which direction to go, and what the potential and possibilities were.
Yeah.
Then, as the whole thing matured, you get the accountants coming in and kind of rationalizing and pruning and carefully monetizing and analyzing the whole setup. So it kind of takes away a lot of the invention and the strangeness and the wildness of those early days.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, and that's a great thing with the museum, is that because it's a volunteer organization, nobody's making any money, so
right.
We sort of, so I can indulge, like I can say, I want to do an Amstrad day. And they say, well, as long as you organize it, you can do it,
Well, I think the thing is that the retro's back, isn't it? I think there's a growing sense amongst people, even if they can't easily articulate it, that something is gone.
Yeah.
And making things better doesn't actually make them better. I know that doesn't sound like it makes any sense, but you think you're improving things. But in that process, you're also losing things. Sometimes people want imperfection and unpredictability. They don't want sameness. I think there's a couple of things there. I think one of them is that I think these things go in waves. I think immediately after a trend, everyone rejects it because that's how fashion works. But a little later on, people with a bit more distance can look back and say, oh, I quite like that. That was quite cool. It's gone. So I think that's kind of what's happening with computers. I think the software has seen the biggest changes on those very limited 8-bit machines. The programmers had to use a great deal of ingenuity to make stuff work. And that was often very apparent in the software. I think, hey, how did they do that in like 64K of RAM or whatever it was? So there was that. But also, I think, just as a lot of products have become homogenized, so I think gameplay has become homogenized. So I think the variety of gameplay back then was much, much broader. Obviously, the processing power was pitiful. The graphics were bad. And things like arcade conversions never worked very well. And you couldn't do a modern first-person shooter on one of these old machines. But their limitations, and because people didn't know what was coming, they could invent anything. Those two things, the limitations of the hardware and being at the start of something, produced this huge variety of games and gameplay. I mean, I've still got my favorites that just don't exist. Not just the games themselves don't exist, but that style of game or that approach to game playing no longer exists. So that's a bit sad.
Yeah. Do you still play these old games? Like, do you?
I think when I left Amstrad Action, all the Amstrad stayed with the company, and I'm sad to say I've not used an Amstrad since. I never had one of my own. They were all at work.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, like if something's your work thing, and then you don't really keep it with you.
I suppose back then I had a full-time job, I had a young family, I had enough to worry about. I didn't get to play computer games in my spare time. I could do it at work because it's my job, but when I got home, there was always other stuff. So it kind of didn't happen, which is a bit sad, really. But the thing is, back then, of course, you didn't have the internet, you didn't have online gaming. Once you left the place where your friends were, your mates were, you're playing a game on your own. So not the same kind of experience, really.
Were you kind of generally interested in computers back then? Like, was that something that?
So I
feel like you're now a techie person, like that you picked up that sort of stuff as a result of that, or?
I think I did. I think it's a kind of journalistic mindset. It's a combination of being willing to research stuff and try it out and figure it out. But a large part of my career has been explaining that to other people. So my job is kind of being a translator for regular people faced with complex or strange technologies. So I guess that that is my interest as well. So although I didn't set out to be interested in computers, it became interesting.
Back in the day, like, were you sort of aware of like a community in Australia, like that? Amstrad was a thing here, or
no, we weren't really. I think again, this is really pre-internet, so you didn't have the same kind of instinctive global communication and awareness that we have now.
Yeah,
it's a very different time, and often it's easy to forget that people were relatively isolated. A magazine was a way for them to be in a community. You only get it once a month, but you get to read about people like you. They send in letters, what have you. So that was like once a month paper-based internet, if you like. So that's about the only community. We weren't really aware of an Amstrad community in Australia. We knew,
but that was the thing that's out there, and it's just some of these stories that you find out about where these machines came from or what happened to them. They're really amazing. Yeah, so.
I think a lot of people are getting a bit bored with modernity and conformity, and they're looking for excitement and interest outside of that. And I think the one thing that the internet and the digital age has done, when everything was analog, it decayed, it disappeared, it vanished. With today's digital media and digital life, it's brought old things back. It's brought old films back. It's brought old music back. Before digital downloads and streaming, your favorite bands of the 70s or 80s were lost to you forever because they might have been on some scratchy old single that went down the charity shop or the tip or whatever. But with digital, you can replicate these things. You don't get any generation loss, so you can replicate them and make them available forever. And it's kind of brought a lot of old stuff back. Yeah, I'm not sure whether that works with old computers, but it sounds like maybe there's a kind of resurgence of interest.
Yeah, definitely. There are archives out there where you can find, pretty much anything that was ever published on the CPC. So there are people that are out there even now, like just kind of scraping through, all of these forums and things, and just see if anything pops up, then they go and, make a copy of it. There are people that are still reviewing, like on YouTube, reviewing new CPC games. So it's
I think the restrictions of the hardware made programmers much more inventive.
Yeah,
made them think outside the box with the games they created. My kids who are grown up now, they told me I was a hipster. So I said, "Is that good?" And they said, "Well, it just means you're obstinate and stubborn and don't go along with everybody else." So I guess I'm a hipster in that respect. So I am always fascinated by things which were once popular and no longer are popular, or older stuff that I think has become unpopular unfairly. I don't know if you've ever played two games, Tau Ceti and Academy.
I do remember, yeah.
Yeah, I think the Academy was like a follow-up sequel, but so there's some quite good maths in there with the kind of well-constructed three-dimensional universe. It's very, very big, but of course the processing power wasn't there. So my memories of Tau Ceti are basically spending half an hour traveling through the infinite blackness of space, not seeing a single pixel. And suddenly 6 of them would clump together out of nowhere and attack me, and that'd be it. Get back at the start. So, but
it was a very complicated game, and I remember
it was,
never being able to do anything in it except for just kind of fly around and get shot at. But it was It was just exciting though to be able to be in a 3D environment on a computer. That was
it's quite a grown-up concept as well. In many ways, a bit more grown-up as a concept than a lot of modern games.
Okay, so just running out of time on my Zoom here, so
okay,
we'll have to start to wrap it up there. So
all right,
look, I just want to say a big thanks to you for being here. It was really nice to talk to you. It was good fun, and
it's great to be invited. Thank you very much, and Thanks for
Like I
asking the
said,
questions.
yeah, I've got a lot of really fond memories of the magazine, you know, and I can remember,
Yeah.
sort of, you know, sneaking it under my desk at school, you know, and just like that sort of stuff, you know, and it's like concentrate on your work. But it's like,
Yeah.
now my work is, you know, computers, and you know, I probably learned more from that magazine than I did from whatever like silly crap my teacher was talking about. You know? So,
Well, I don't think I can claim all the credit, but thank you very much anyway.
yeah, no,
They were good times, and it's nice to be asked these questions because it reminds me of things that have gone to the back of my mind.
yeah.
So yeah, it's good to chat about those days.
Okay, yeah. So look, thank you very much. It's
You're welcome.
have been here, and yeah, I'm sure that everyone is going to be very excited to see the video and to hear from you. And yeah, I'll take some photos or something from the day and send them to you so you can see what we got up to.
That would be cool. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, and have a great. I was going to say have a great night, but have a great day. It's
yeah,
it's bedtime for me.
It's lunchtime for me now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, have a good lunch then, and
thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully see you again sometime.
Yeah. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah.
See you.
Okay. Thank you.